Here in the knitting world, unspun yarn is not anything new. However, recently it's really taken over the knitting world by storm. More and more manufacturers are coming out with their own versions of unspun yarn, which is simply pencil roving that has not been spun up. There's no twist in it. It has just been drafted. Unspun yarn can come in a beautiful variety of colors. I myself fell in love with unspun yarns a few years ago, and I have not stopped working with them since. I have knit and designed numerous garments and accessories with them. So in an effort to bring you the ultimate list and guide to unspun yarn patterns, I have compiled every single unspun yarn project that I've ever knit or designed, as well as a few that I think are really beautiful that are on my radar. Some of them I plan to knit myself. So if you're looking to try unspun yarn, or you already have some and you don't know what to do with it and you're in need of some inspiration, this is the video for you. I've got over 15 patterns that I'm going to talk about today. It's going to be a real quick fire situation, so let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Thoughtfully Made Fiber Vlogcast. My name is Amy, and I am a knitting pattern designer as well as sometimes sewist, spinner, weaver. I kind of dabble in all the fiber crafts. So if you are new around here or you haven't seen my video about unspun yarns yet, I do have a video all about what it is, why I love to work with it, and how to work with it so that you don't end up with too much breakage. So if you're new to unspun yarns and you'd like to find out more, that is the video for you. Today we're going to deep dive into all the different patterns that are available on the market from myself and a few from others as well, all about it. So we're going to jump right into it. So on the market we have quite a few unspun yarns. Of those, the biggest one probably is Plotulopi, which is made with pure Icelandic wool. I do not have any here because I don't get along with Icelandic wool. I find that the guard hairs in it can be so uncomfortable and they create all kinds of sensory issues for me. But if you don't struggle with sensory issues, the Plotulopi yarns are some of the warmest that you're going to find on the market, and they come in a range of really beautiful colors. Secondly, because the first unspun yarn that I ever fell in love with was Nutiden, which is made out of a small mill in Sweden, I believe. Many of my designs are made from Nutiden because I have acquired a huge amount of them. However, Nutiden can be very difficult to purchase. They sell out very quickly, and none of the colors or the blends are repeatable. So this also means that as they update the mill and replace parts in the machinery there often are discrepancies that happen in Nutiden. So for example, ever since I started working with Nutiden, the yarn has gotten noticeably thicker, and the gauge that I work with it at is noticeably larger, and I have not purchased Nutiden in some time. And this is because as I create knitting pattern designs, I want you, the knitter, to be able to replicate whatever I have, and the yarns have to be accessible. So while I have designed basically exclusively with limited edition unspun yarns, I'm really making an effort to try to update my catalog for the yardages for a standardized unspun yarn. So that standardized unspun yarn is called Ranunculus. It is made by a small mill out in Spain by Wool Dreamers, which is a brand I now carry in my shop. Ranunculus is made from the fleece of the same sheep that we get our manchego cheese from. So if we did not use the fleece up and turn it into yarn, it would be a waste product. So this is a very environmentally friendly unspun yarn. It creates a really fluffy, really lofty yarn that smells really good. I've never met an unspun yarn I don't like. They all smell really sheepy and wonderful, and Ranunculus is no exception. It comes in a range of really beautiful colors, and we carry quite a few in shop. So I'm gonna put the link to that and to Nutiden and to all the different yarns and the patterns that I talk about in this video in the description box below. I will not be mentioning it again because there's a lot of patterns. So just so you know, everything I talk about is gonna be in there. So the story I'm about to tell is slightly embarrassing. The very first time that I used unspun yarn was sight unseen, and I used it for a design for a magazine. So at the time, I had really fallen in love with Nutiden yarn, but I had never actually finished a whole project with it. And I pitched a sweater, a Gansey-inspired sweater using unspun yarn. The idea was that you'd be wrapped up in a huge hug from the unspun yarn and the kind of region-specific fiber, the Swedish fiber from Nutiden. So I already had Nutiden in hand, but I had never designed with it or knit with it or anything, and I pitched a whole design to making magazine, and if it had not worked out and if I had ended up hating Unspun, it would have been a disaster. Very luckily, I fell more and more in love with this Unspun yarn as I worked with it, and I did make sure that I had the magazine send me an extra plate. That's what they're called, these units. They're called plates because they look like plates, I guess. But we had extra plates. I made sure I had plenty of yardage, and in the end, I came up with a pattern that I'm really, really proud of. And at the time, it was called the Seasons Change Pullover. I'm gonna put a picture here of the original sample, and I continue to wear the sample and love it. But since then, I've also regraded it and made it more size and shape inclusive. I've added bust darts, and several years down the line, it became the Matthew pullover because originally it was kind of menswear inspired, and the new colorway that I used for it was so autumny and reminded me of Anne of Green Gables. So it was renamed and placed inside of my Anne of Green Gables series. So the Seasons Change became the Matthew pullover, and both of them were knit in Nutiden. So in my last episode, you might have seen me talk about this pattern, so I will not go too far into it, but it was definitely the first time I've ever designed with or worked with Nutiden, and the rest is history. I love Unspun yarn now. So if you're looking for a little bit of like a gender neutral, like kind of menswear inspired textured pullover, this one is for you. There's texture and cables, but not too much texture and cables as it happens just in the yoke. And additionally, the texture is lifted off the bust tissue, the chest tissue, and above the apex so that it doesn't end in a really awkward place. So on the front, the texture is lifted above all of this. There's a shorter section of it, and on the back there's more of this texture to show off. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. The first sample I have stolen into my closet, and I wear it almost every day during the winter. Next, I worked up a third sample of my best-selling pattern, Coloring Book Raglin, to show the different widths of stripes. This pattern was originally intended as like a beginner-friendly pattern for a Raglin pullover, and it kind of turned into a thing with striping and people using all different kinds of colors to make their own. I created kind of like a mariner-inspired version using a purple color and a white color of the Coloring Book Raglin. So after I knit the first 2 samples of it using regular spun yarn, I really wanted to try it in unspun yarn, so I worked it up in Nutiden that I already had in my collection. Both of these colors have gone away forever now, so there's no point in me talking about them, but there's like kind of a wine color and a cream color, and I created thinner stripes on this than I did on the other sample that has stripes of the Coloring Book Raglin. This is the other sweater that I wear all the time when the weather gets cold. Both the Matthew pullover and the Coloring Book Raglin are really suitable for outerwear, except for in like the deepest freeze conditions. It's fine for a quick jaunt outside in really cold conditions, and I find that I rarely reach for my coat here in Missouri unless it's like a sub-zero situation. So next is a pattern by Midori Hirose, the Ranunculus, which everybody knows about, and it's been knit so many times by users of Nutiden, Plotulopi, Mantelopi, like all the unspun yarns have pretty much been worked up on this. So if you can use Ravelry, you can definitely see this pattern worked up in all kinds of unspun yarn. I knit the Ranunculus quite a while back just to use up some leftover yarn, and I really did enjoy knitting it. The process was really fun. The texture is really beautiful. So if you are thinking about this pattern, luckily there's like literally 10,000 finished objects out there, so you can check it out for yourself and see if it's suitable for you. With the leftovers of my very first Matthew pullover, or back then it was called the Seasons Change, I knit up some mittens. Now, so here's a huge caveat. This is a one size fits all mittens. So if you want a larger size or a longer size or a wider size, you're gonna have to make some modifications. It is very beautiful. I knit it just because it was at the time the only pattern for unspun that was suitable for like the very small amount of leftovers I had from that pattern. This is called the Moorland Mittens, and I do wear it quite a lot in the winter. I will say that I have very small hands. It is quite large on me. Like there's a good chunk of it that flaps around, and to shorten it, I would have to take off some of the repeats of the little cable, traveling cable leafy motif. And they're so beautiful, first of all. I love the leafy motif. And second of all, to take off one repeat of it would make it a lot shorter, possibly too short for me, so it is a little bit difficult to adjust, so bear that in mind. So the Moorland mitten was originally designed for Nutiden, I believe, so it is very suitable for all kinds of unspun yarn. Along with the Moorland Mittens is the Moorland Cardigan, which is a size-inclusive cardigan version of the same pattern. I have not knit the Moorland cardigan, but if you're looking for a cardigan for unspun yarn, that might be an option for you. So next, after that, I designed my very first unspun pattern to be published not in a magazine. It is called the Building Blocks Drop, and it's relative to Building Blocks Cardi. The concept for this pattern was that I wanted a worsted weight and also unspun compatible pullover knit using a modified drop shoulder construction. It is all knit in one piece from the bottom up. Both of them are, and then the sleeves are picked up. You work a little bit of sleeve cap shaping for a better fit. There's also some armhole shaping in almost all the sizes except for I think size A and B, so that the edge of the shoulder drop drops near the same place on everybody. Yeah, because we don't want that to end up out in the elbow. When that happens and you lift your arm, you're going to be showing like everything. The whole thing's going to lift up. So the Building Blocks Cardi and Building Blocks Drop were kind of my attempt at bringing these really classic shapes with an updated, modern, beautiful size-inclusive and shape-inclusive fit. Both of them feature bust darts, and I'm really proud of them. So these two are not nearly as popular as my coloring book Raglin pattern when it comes to basics, but I've heard really good things from all of my testers and customers about the fit. It also has like an adjustable arm circumference situation. So if the slim arms are not for you, the pattern really does lay out how you can knit a larger arm size. So it is very customizable. It comes in like a million different views, so you can work it up. Short sleeve as a slip over or long sleeve, and then there's like an optional split hem on both of these versions. So it is highly customizable. It's a really good value. You get a lot out of it. Highly recommend my two patterns, the Building Blocks patterns. So the next pattern I knit using unspun yarn is by an older pattern. It is called the Wetherell Pullover by Kiyomi Burgin. So the caveat about this pattern is that it is not quite size inclusive. The largest size is 61.5 inches, and the sample is shown on somebody with like 10 inches of ease. So theoretically, the highest bust circumference that it goes up to is for 51 inches thereabouts. So that is my other caveat about this. It was published a while ago in a magazine, so I understand that magazines were a little bit slow to pivot on size inclusivity, and that's probably why, unlike Kiyomi's other patterns, this one is not as size inclusive. Now, every time I wear the Wetherell pullover or post about it, I get 100,000 questions about it. This one is by far my most popular personal knit that I've made with unspun yarn that I did not personally design. People ask me about it all the time. People stop me in the streets to ask me about it. The yoke design is so clever and so beautiful. So if I made this again, I would make a few modifications. Instead of doing short rows at the bottom, I will do them near the top. They really disappear and I literally cannot see them, and I can't tell which side is front and which side is back anymore. And it doesn't really meaningfully lift the neck enough. So if I made it again, I would definitely move short rows or even add more short rows to the back neck to lift it up even more. The funnel neck is so pretty. I love wearing it. I feel amazing wearing it. But the fit is a little awkward. I think circular yokes and me just don't super get along when they're really oversized because they sit a little awkwardly on me. But I really want to knit another one still. Like, it's just so pretty, like the aesthetics of it. It is very beautiful. You might love it. If you don't mind circular yokes, this one's great. I love the little raglan line under the circular yoke. It really goes a long way to making the circular yoke fit a little bit better. Lovely, lovely pattern. Highly recommend it if you're in the size range for it. So the next pattern I'd like to talk to you about is one of my very favorites. I knit this up using Woolentwine's Thrive, which is no longer available, but it'll work in any of the unspun yarns. This is a beautiful, large, chunky lace triangle shawl. It is knit from one end to the other, and you start here on the longer end and you work your way to the point. I really love this shawl. This shawl was inspired by meditation mazes, which are little mazes that you walk so that it aids. It's like a meditation tool to help you focus on whatever it is you're meditating about. It is a common thing throughout the world in various faith traditions, and I really love the concept, and I designed the shawl to be similar. So you start with the wide end of the triangle with many repeats of the shawl, and you work your way up, and as you work it decreases and it becomes fewer and fewer repeats until you come to the point that you can focus on. So it has that kind of like zeroing in on the point feeling, which reminds me of meditation and meditative mazes. So that is a really great one if you're into shawls. It uses, I think, just 2 or 3 plates of yarn. I highly recommend that one if you're looking for a shawl. Next, I'd like to talk about a tester version of one of my patterns, which was not designed in Unspun, but would look beautiful in Unspun. Sharon of Reknit, you knit up the most beautiful version of the Friendship Pullover using Nutiden yarn. So I don't have Nutiden that is thin enough for this pattern anymore. All of my current Nutiden collection is from after they changed the machinery out and it's a little bit thicker. So I'm thinking about knitting one using Plotulopi, which is a little bit thinner, a little bit less dense. I haven't decided on the color yet, but Sharon's version has really inspired me and is so beautiful. It has cables that travel straight from the ribbing on the hem all the way up into the funnel neck. You can knit the funnel neck folded over like I did, or you can knit it single layer, any way you want, or even work it really short as a crew. As soon as I find some time, I really need a hire sample knitter so I can like knit for myself. This is the trouble I'm in. I have all these plans and some of them are like 2-year-old plans and I still haven't had time to make it. So if you're looking for a pattern with an interesting construction, neck construction, as well as a cable panel, this is the one for you. It would be really beautiful in Plotulopi as well. Sharon's Friendship Pullover inspired me so much that I used leftover yarn from the pattern behind me, which I'll talk about later, and I designed the Friendship cushion using Unspun yarn. I made 2 different samples of this, or rather my sample maker made 2 different samples of it, and this one is a smaller one. It comes in, I think, 4 sizes of throw pillows, like common throw pillow sizes. It is worked flat, then seamed together on the back. It seams together on the side and it overlaps with this beautiful button band. I really love the Friendship cushion. I think at least one tester used Plotulopi for it, and then the other sample was made using Knit Picks Simply Wool, which is one of my favorite yarns. So if you're looking for a beautiful gift for holiday knitting, this is a great one because you don't have to worry about sizing. You can just knit one up. So if you have a small amount of yarn, especially unspun yarn, and you're looking to make something really quick, really easy, the Friendship cushion is a great one for that. Next, I'd like to talk about the Sometime Alone shawl I knit. This pattern is by Silvia McFadden and was originally designed in a different yarn, actually one of my favorite yarns, Hinterland Range, and it is a beautiful lace shawl. This one starts at the point and goes all the way to the widest part. It is a beautiful pattern. I really enjoyed knitting it. I knit it using leftover Nutiden from another project, and I highly recommend it. I think quite a few people have knit it using various unspun yarns, so if you're looking for a pattern that goes from the tip to the wider part, that one is for you. That one I find is helpful if you have like an unknown quantity of unspun yarn, or you're not sure you have enough to finish the whole shawl. You can basically just knit until you almost run out of yarn and then work the edging, and then you're done. So it is that style of shawl. It's a really beautiful one. I highly recommend it, and all of her other shawls, they're all really beautiful. Hopefully I've popped a picture of my version over here. It is very lovely. I think it shows off like undyed or white versions of unspun super well, but I kind of want to work it up in a color as well. I don't know, that's still percolating in my mind. Finally, I'd like to talk to you about the weekday dress. It is here behind me, and I'll insert some photos as well. This one was designed as another kind of like modular pattern with mix and match options. It comes in a short sleeve, it comes in a long sleeve, it comes as a dress, it comes as a pullover. There's all kinds of ways to make it up. This one is knitted Nutiden, but quite a few of my test knitters knitted up using Plotulopi and other unspun yarns. The other recommended yarn for this pattern is Cyrano by Derirum Natura, which is a semi-woolen spun yarn. Because of the oversized look and because of the dress option, I definitely recommend that you use an unspun or woolen spun yarn to knit up this pattern so that it's not overly heavy. The thing about hand knit dresses is that you need to take into account the weight of the overall garment and you don't want it to be too heavy since there's so much fabric. To do that, you either need to knit it in like a much thinner yarn, like fingering weight yarn, which I loathe. I don't want to knit like a whole dress in fingering weight yarn, or you use an unspun yarn, which is very lofty and has very little weight for the volume that it occupies. Knits up quickly. It's beautiful for winter layering. Hopefully the pictures will show how lovely it is on a person. So I highly recommend the weekday pullover and dress pattern, which I released earlier this year. So far, we've covered patterns for unspun yarn that are suitable for unspun yarns that I've designed or knitted myself. And now we are moving into the territory of patterns for unspun yarns that I have not personally made in Unspun. So first, I want to talk to you about the emotional support chicken. So I don't think I've talked about this here on video form yet, but I made an emotional support chicken using worsted weight yarn that I personally spun, and it was super fun. My daughter sleeps with it near her. It's super adorable, and quite a few people have worked it up using leftover bits of unspun yarn. So if you have smaller quantity of unspun yarn that coordinate together really well, they could make an adorable emotional support chicken. I will not go on and on about the emotional support chicken. I feel like everybody in the knitting world already knows about it. It is so cute. I didn't understand the hype before, and after I knit it and how satisfying all those short rows are, the way they form the belly and the tail and everything, I get it now. I'm on the bandwagon train for the emotional support chicken. It's a great pattern, highly recommend it. So for myself, my next plans for Unspun involve one of my patterns, but I've not worked it up in Unspun yarn yet. It is the directional pullover. It is a color work top down drop shoulder pullover. I did not love designing a top down modified drop shoulder pullover, but I enjoy wearing it. So I will be knitting another one using unspun yarn. I already have colors of Plotulopi picked out for it, but I want to hang on to that information for a little bit longer, and as soon as I have any progress on it, I will share it with you. So this one is beautiful, knit up in worsted weight gauge because unspun yarn is so flexible. You can knit it up in a lot of different gauges as it will expand to fill the space that you give it. Finally, I did have a tester, Mia, who worked it up in a single solid color of unspun yarn, and I will share this picture with her consent here over here so that you can see Mia's version. You can see how beautiful it is in unspun yarn. So that's another one to consider if you either prefer a modified shoulder pullover or top down rather than bottom up compared to some of my other drop shoulder pullovers, and also if you want color work. So those are kind of the two things that to take into consideration if you're considering the directional pullover over some of my other patterns. And finally, personally, I am planning to knit a Snow Crocus by Midori Hirose. I love a good Ganzi. You all know that. I've already talked about it earlier. And this pattern knits up in the perfect super wide gauge for a Snow Crocus. I'll probably use up some of my Nutiden that I have in stash because I have so much and I need to use it up. I love it and I think it deserves to be knit up rather than just sitting in my stash forever. So that's kind of the next thing on my radar for unspun yarn patterns that I want to knit. This one is super popular. I love the neckline, I love the texture, I love the really dramatic cables all throughout the front. It is a really good one. I highly recommend it. I think lots of people have already worked it up in Nutiden, so I have like a good amount of faith that it's going to work out. So I hope that all of these patterns have given you something to think about and a wide variety to choose from. If you liked any one of these patterns, please do tell us in the comments below. And if you have a pattern that you've knit using unspun yarn that you love that I have not mentioned here, please also drop it in the comments. I'm always looking for more pattern recommendations, and I can always make another listicle on my blog or something about it. So I'm very most definitely accepting suggestions for patterns that work well with unspun yarn. If you like this video, I would very much appreciate it if you hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more like this, do subscribe. And don't forget, if you're looking for more information on unspun yarns, why I love it, how to work with it without breaking it, don't forget that I do have another video just on that subject. So hopefully I will see you again around here soon. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.